Erie News Now is your breaking coronavirus coverage you can count on. Hello and welcome to this week's Insider. I'm Lisa Adams. Today we're going to be talking about the financial challenges that consumers and small businesses may be facing during the COVID-19 crisis and long after. And we're going to tell you about an ad hoc committee of the Erie County Bar Association coming together to offer some free advice through an Ask a Lawyer helpline that they're initiating this coming week. So welcome to our audience and to our listeners on the radio as well. Our guest today via iPad on our stand-in here, if we can take a look, is our longtime Erie bankruptcy attorney, Guy Fustine, chair of Ask a Lawyer. Hello, Guy.
Hello, Lisa. Good morning.
Yeah, so since you're staying home and most of us are staying home, I know you have been watching, along with the rest of us, businesses temporarily shuttering or retracting and a lot of people being furloughed, and I know you had an idea to help. So what were you thinking?
Well, first, Lisa, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Like so many other Americans who are working from home, I asked myself, how can I help? And the whole country is really suffering in this situation. The major concern, of course, being the coronavirus, but the side effect on the economy, on individual finances, is really right up my alley. I've been practicing law for 35 years with the Knox Law Firm, and this has been my area of concentration. And so I reached out to my colleagues at the Bar Association and found that they were thinking the same thing. How can we help, given our area of concentration? Specifically Dan Foster and Mike Krzeski, John Melarogno, Nick Pagliari, Joe Spiro, Gary Skiba, and others immediately adopted this idea, and it was like spontaneous combustion. Everybody was all in almost immediately.
So the idea basically is to offer some free advice because everybody's really quite nervous right now about where things are going in the short term and the long term. So this coming Monday through Thursday, the Bar Association is going to be opening up something you're calling the Ask a Lawyer helpline to take people's calls and to answer their questions, their legal questions. This is all going to be free. So tell us a little bit about how this is going to work.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Thanks to George Joseph, who's the president of the bar. He's really adopted this program, and we've established an Ask a Lawyer helpline for consumers and small business owners to call in to the Bar Association office at 459-3111 Monday through Thursday of next week. That's April 6th through the 9th. And your call will be referred out to a lawyer on this committee. And the purpose will be that you'll have a 5 or 10 minute telephone conversation with this lawyer to answer your questions and to really assess the situation and find out, what's best for you at this point in time. If necessary, the caller will be referred back to the Bar Association and then given an opportunity to participate in the lawyers' referral services, which lawyers have committed in their areas of concentration to provide services to clients who don't have a lawyer and who are looking for one. Ordinarily, the initial consultation for the lawyer's referral service is $50, and that is going to be waived. And of course, there's no charge for the call-in. So there's also a pro bono program through the Bar Association that if you qualify for that. But this call-in service and the initial consultation of the lawyer's referral service is really the Bar Association's way of trying to do our part in this difficult time.
Yeah, as you were talking, we were scrolling through the names of all of the attorneys who have agreed to participate. So important to emphasize this really is not a solicitation at this point in time, because if you talk to someone and you think they need more than just a little calming of the nerves, a few easy answered questions, then it's going to go back through what's the regular Bar Association referral process, right? No charge.
That's exactly right. This is a public service project. It's all about trying to serve the public and really, again, just trying to do our part as lawyers who know a little bit more about these types of issues, debtor-creditor law, the issues faced by consumers as well as small businesses.
we're going to talk a little bit about some of those specifics for consumers and for small businesses, but just broadly, are you getting the sense in your field that people are really anxious?
Oh, there's no question about it. My phone's been ringing off the hook. The same has been true of my colleagues. And people have very simple questions like, what's a forbearance agreement? What should I do with my stimulus check? To more difficult questions. I run a company. Should I lay off my employees? What's going to happen if I can't make the payments to the bank? Those types of things are really on people's minds, and definitely growing anxiety on top of just concern, the medical issues of trying to stay healthy.
Well, hopefully we'll help to alleviate some of that anxiety by answering some basic questions when we come back, starting with advice for consumers to prevent having to move toward bankruptcy protection. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Insider. I'm Lisa Adams. If you're watching or listening to us on the radio, all of our insiders now are COVID-19 focused. Our guest again today via iPad on our so-called stand-in is longtime Erie bankruptcy attorney Guy Fustine, who is chair of the Ask a Lawyer program that we just introduced you to. It's a committee of the County Bar Association formed just to help people and small businesses think through their financial concerns during and after COVID-19. So starting now with consumers worried about their bills, their mortgage, their car payments, what should they do right now? They need to have a plan, right?
Well, they do. That's the most important thing, is to develop a plan. This situation does not change the basics of debtor-creditor law. And I think it's always a good idea to start with an assessment of your revenue, your income, and your expenses. It's really that simple, Lisa. I think people should prepare a new budget, and they should calculate their income based on whether or not they've been laid off, or if they're part-time instead of full-time. They should apply for unemployment compensation. There's an enhanced package that's available through the new CARES Act, and they should, as far as the revenues go on their personal budget, they should consider the stimulus check that the government will be sending out. And just briefly, it's $1,200 per individual if you earn less than $75,000 a year. It is $500 per child. So if you take a family of four and mom and dad are both employed and they have two children, then the one-time check would be $3,400. It'd be $1,200 for mom, $1,200 for dad, and then $500 for the two kids that are home, so they could expect a $3,400 check.
Guy, I would imagine it's easy for all of us to be in a little bit of denial or to be kind of holding our breath because life is sort of standing still right now, but it's important for people to reach out and make arrangements. If they don't think they're going to be able to make a payment at this point in time, how do they go about that? Letting their landlord know, or letting, because, some organizations are making it clear there's going to be a little forgiveness here, but what do people need to do to make sure that kicks in?
Well, I wouldn't run out and spend a stimulus check right away. That's exactly what you don't want to do. What you want to do is to contact your creditors directly. I do not recommend you go through any third-party service that you'll see advertised on television or on the radio that they'll take care of this for you. I do not recommend that. I think you should reach out to your creditors directly and ask for an accommodation. You could ask for a moratorium on payments for a certain period of time, or request a forbearance agreement.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That's a word we may have heard, but people may not know what that really means, so let's do a little legal definition here. Tell us about why forbearance is an important term for us to know right now.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. And this is a question that I've gotten from a number of people, because when they call their credit card company or the bank, they hear that term forbearance. And what forbearance means is refraining from action, so that the creditor would refrain from filing suit or trying to get payment out of the debtor for a certain period of time, so that rather than put pressure on on the individual. They would give an extension of time to try to make the payments, possibly a forgiveness of some of the debt at some point in time, or really the extension of time is the most important thing. Now, forbearance agreements require consideration, so the bank or the credit card company may ask for something in return, possibly collateral or a guarantee, but the thrust of the forbearance agreement is to help the debtor, to help the person who's having problems making ends meet. And I could give you an example of that, Lisa, if you'd like.
Yeah, sure, you can do that. I mean, I'm just thinking you also talked about not to spend that CARES Act check that's going to be coming from the government. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, should that check go to paying these debts off so you don't dip into your savings, or should you bank the check? I mean, how do you deal with that?
Well, I think it's a good idea to bank the check and pay necessary living expenses. I mean, that's the most important thing. You have to pay those essential living expenses. And you want to pay what's necessary to your creditors, but not until you call first and try to find out if there's some accommodation available to you, something in combination with a forbearance agreement. And that's really important.
So you're trying to set priorities here of what gets paid first. So your example, if you can do it quickly.
Absolutely. An example would be like a car loan. If you call your creditor and you have having a problem for 2 or 3 months, you might put those payments onto the end of the term. So it's a short-term moratorium, tack the payments on at the end, and that should help in the short run. Maybe the creditor would even reduce the debt so it's closer to the value of the car. So those are the types of things that can be done that won't harm the creditor too much and will also provide a lot of help to the consumer.
Because you're promising you're going to pay it at some point in time.
Right. It's an extension, and that's part of one of the essential parts of a forbearance agreement.
But they're not going to just do that for you. You have to reach out.
That's right. You have to reach out, and as you mentioned, Lisa, the banks already have programs in place. Credit card companies have programs in place, especially in response to the coronavirus. So call and take advantage of those, and you can negotiate a little bit too. Don't just accept what's on the face of it. Try to get as much as you can, and in this way, the idea is to work through these problems without overreacting.
So when we come back, we're going to talk about advice for small businesses, as you mentioned, during these times, similar but yet different for the consumers. And we're going to talk with our Ask a Lawyer chair about that. Stay with us. I'm Lisa Adams. Welcome back again to The Insider. If you're watching or if you're listening to us on the radio, again via iPad here on our stand-in, we're talking with Erie bankruptcy attorney Guy Fastine, who's chair of the newly formed Ask a Lawyer program, part of the Erie County Bar Association, trying to help people and businesses out through their financial concerns at this time. So let's move on to talk about small businesses. I assume it is similar to consumers in the sense that you have to have a plan and reach out to those creditors?
No question about it. You need to have a plan. You need to cast a new budget in light of the circumstances that exist today. And one of the real game changers for small businesses is the CARES Act. That's the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, CARES. And that provides a number of possible loans, relief packages for businesses that small businesses should definitely take advantage of.
I'm sure they have to have both a short and a long view on this. So how do they make good decisions for the short term and the long term?
Well, one of the aspects of the disaster relief program are emergency economic loans up to $10,000, and those are supposed to be made available in the very short term, and you'd work through your own bank for that. There's a small business debt relief program for existing SBA loans. So it provides a 6-month forbearance or a 6-month extension for people that are already operating under a Small Business Administration loan, which I think is helpful. Probably most significantly for businesses with less than 500 employees, there's an SBA-backed loan which is equal to 250% of the company's average monthly payroll. And the unique aspect of this, if that loan is used for payroll, rent, or utilities, the SBA will actually reimburse the bank for those advances, so you won't have to pay for those. And that'll be a great help. So I think that's really awesome and will help small businesses get through this time period. The whole thing is really designed to get people back to work. So to minimize the problems we talked about in the last segment, Lisa, what about growing unemployment? So this whole package is designed to get people back to work. So I'd recommend to the small business owners, you need to contact your bank, you need to do your own research and look through what programs are available to you.
You mentioned those decisions about whether to lay off employees or not. I mean, we're hearing a mix of total furlough to maybe reducing people's pay at this point in time. Any thoughts on what's the right thing to do there?
Well, I always tell my clients that are business clients, I mean, you have to lay off employees if you don't have the work, because you'll continue to accrue the employee taxes. Now, the thing about this payroll protection plan is that you can, even if you laid people off, you can hire them back and then get the benefit of this SBA loan, so that then when you pay them, even if you don't have the money from the loan that you use to pay the employees will be reimbursed to the bank and to your benefit through this SBA program. So a lot of companies have the chance to hire their employees back that they rightfully laid off prior to this time. So that the regulations haven't been set forth yet, but we expect those later this week or middle part of next week, and then it'll be clear how businesses can take advantage of that. That's, I think, really important, one of the most important aspects of the CARES Act.
Two quick questions for you. How important is it to have good communication with the employees when you're making those decisions, so they know that they'll be hired back, so they don't panic? And then what if it becomes really impossible for a business to perform? We're going to have another little legal term lesson here, if you can tell us about force majeure.
Well, it's super important to be honest, especially with your employees. And not only your employees, but your creditors, the companies that you work with in cluster manufacturing groups, which we have a lot of in the Erie area. I mean, everybody has to be honest with each other. That's the only way that you can achieve a realistic solution to these things. We don't want to say to each other what you think the person wants to hear. You need to be realistic, and we just all need to dig in together. One of the concepts at law, which you sort of have to dust off the law books because it doesn't come up that often, is the concept of force majeure. And that's a contract clause that would relieve a party from performing obligations under certain circumstances that make it impossible to perform. Usually this is used in time of war or natural disaster, or certainly appropriate to what we're experiencing now with the coronavirus. It's the impossibility of performance.
So is that hiding in people's contract language and they don't even know it's there?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Lisa. Really what you need to do as small business owners, you need to pull out your contracts. You need to look through the supply agreements, the service agreements, your loan documents, your insurance policies, construction contracts, leases, government contracts. Look for a provision regarding force majeure, because there may be notice requirements. You may have to notify the creditor, or you may have to take certain actions to mitigate the harm of the crises that you're experiencing. So you want to certainly review those contracts. You also may be a defense. The defense of impossibility and a contract action is also one that there may be other avenues that you can gain the benefit of that defense, even if you don't have a force majeure clause in the contract.
All right, that's really, really helpful, and you don't even have to speak French, right? Trying to keep a little bit of humor in a challenging time. Well, you mentioned war and other times, and although we do feel like we're in unprecedented times, there certainly are some other events in history where we needed government relief like this, and we'll talk briefly about that when we come back. Stay with us. Well, welcome back. It's all about businesses and business finances and personal finances during COVID-19 with bankruptcy attorney Guy Fastine today. So again, remind us, this is unprecedented for most of us, but there have been times like this in history when we needed government relief.
That's right. The Constitution contains a bankruptcy clause, so Congress can pass uniform bankruptcy laws. In the 1800s, there were short-term laws passed in response to the Civil War, railroad bankruptcies in 1873. In 1898, the Bankruptcy Act created the concept of a corporate reorganization. Here in the 1900s, the Chandler Act in 1938 was passed in response to the Depression. In 1979, the Bankruptcy Code was passed in response to the recession of the 1970s. So bankruptcy laws have historically been adaptive to financial crises, and we expect to see that in response to this current crisis. We've seen a little bit of that in the CARES Act, but there's going to be more to come, I'm sure.
And again, you're encouraging people not to rush into bankruptcy, to look at some of these creative solutions that are available to them right now.
That's right. Similar to the advice we receive from the medical professionals, don't run to the hospital if you have a fever. Try to treat it at home first, and then if necessary, then go to the hospital. Same thing here. Don't run into bankruptcy court and file a petition. Let the dust settle a little bit. Stay calm. Be strong. Contact your creditors, make a plan, and we'll get through this together.
So we've been talking rather broadly about these things for individuals and for small businesses, but we do want to remind people that this whole idea came together to do this Ask a Lawyer panel, if you will, and that's coming up next week. It's 4 days. It's Monday through Thursday through the Erie County Bar Association, and it's free. So you want people to call, right?
Absolutely, Lisa. We want to help. That's what this is all about, trying to do our part. And we sure hope people call in, and I think we can give you some practical advice, and then we can dig a little deeper for you if you need it.
And as you mentioned, your phones have been ringing, all of you who practice law in this area. So if people call that number, they need to maybe be patient, because those calls will be routed to each of you who's participating.
That's right, and we were trying to try to return the call within that same day. If necessary, though, it might take up to 24 hours, but we'll be able to return most of the calls within the same day.
All right, and if you didn't write that phone number down, it's really just the phone number of the Erie County Bar Association, so you can pick up the phone and call Monday through Thursday with your personal and your business questions. Attorney Guy Fastine, thank you so much for being with us today on The Insider. This was really insightful.
You're welcome, and thank you, Lisa, very much for your support of this project, and we really appreciate it. Everyone at the Erie County Bar Association appreciate your help, and we're looking forward to helping the public as much as we can.
All right, and as always, thank you for joining us. If you have an idea for us to explore during these times, just email me at ladams@wicu12.com, and join us again next time for The Insider.